Alrighty, we're kicking it old school today. We're doing an all-American pickup video. And as much as I would love to title these all-American pickup videos, I don't know how that's going to trigger anything. So we're just doing that. These aren't going to be a usual thing. I just have a stack of stuff here I thought would be something fun to talk about. Especially since it's like the way I kind of view collecting is very different now. Yeah, obviously, there's different factors that go into that. Platform selection, digital, retro revival stuff, all that. So, while this is inherently a pickup video, it's also going to be kind of like a discussion on limited release companies, digital and physical stuff as a whole. Because I know there's all this doom and gloom with all digital future and everything, because that gets people's attention, and that's not. I'm not saying it's far off. It will eventually happen, of course, but I don't think it's going to happen as fast as consumers think it will, or as fast as, we'll say, development houses hope, or certain individuals do, at least. So consider this, time and place in terms of topic for where I sit right now, as well as tying in this pickup video. And I also realize the camera's a little bit off kilter. But fuck it. All right, so kicking into this, we have one what I call retro revival release, and that is Trip World on the Game Boy from Limited Run Games. Now, this game is originally I believe it's European and Japan only game, and it's incredibly rare, incredibly expensive. And Limited Run, I believe it's Konami who owns Sunsoft and all their IPs at this point. They have a partnership with them. So, of course, they decide, hey, let's do Trip World. A certain demographic of gamer is going to pick that up. And my light just went out. But the lighting looks okay, so I think we're good. A certain demographic of gamer is going to pick that up. Me. Game Boy collectors, maybe people who've been chasing after Trip World for a while, or maybe folks who own Trip World and are just like, I'm cool with owning it legitimately. Let me flip the more expensive version. So I'm in the category of I would like to own a game legitimately, because for me to even consider a game completed within my backlog and my collection, I have to own it legitimately, whether that's physical or digital. I don't discriminate at this point. And that's where the digital conversation will come in a little bit later on in the video. But with Trip World, I had heard about this game years and years ago, back in the YouTube heyday, when Pete Dorr purchased it and played a little bit of it. And it's basically a cute platformer, like think Kirby but squishier. And it's been... Sorry, my nose is really itchy. And it's eluded a lot of collectors for several years. Me, I always just looked at it. I was like, I'm never going to freaking buy this damn thing. But once Limited Run presented it, to me, again, target demographic, it applies or appeals to a certain type of collector and gamer, I'm all about it. Now, of course, they had to do other versions. They put on the Switch. They did a Game Boy Color version. They did, of course, the regular Game Boy, which is how it came out originally, and all that stuff, because at that point, they realized a certain type of gamer is only going to pick up the Game Boy version. A certain type of gamer may say, oh, cool, they made it apply for Game Boy Color, I'll buy this one. Maybe I'll buy both. Or a certain type of gamer is like, you know what, I have no interest in buying anything for the Game Boy. I have no interest in buying anything for the Game Boy Color. I'll pick it up on the Switch. It's available digitally. It's available physically. Everybody makes money, right? And that's really, and it's the same game. And that's really where I say the digital versus physical thing kind of comes into play, because it's not about just appealing to 5 or 10 people, generalizing of course. It's about hitting as many targets as possible. There are people who want complete Switch collections. There are people who want complete limited run numbered release collections, etc., etc. So if you're able to tap into all that and you place it in the same physical release order, it just totally makes sense. And to that end too, I do not believe Limited Run has actually been having, I'll say, a good time when it comes to selling through the stock of their stuff for open pre-order, because a lot of their stuff that's been on pre-order on their website, I'm pulling them over as I talk, is now on Amazon. It's now on other distribution channels. It's been on Best Buy for a few times, for a couple of releases, stuff along those lines. And I really don't know if their business model necessarily makes sense at this point. For me, if I see a limited run has a release and I'm like, ooh, that looks really good. Ooh, that's something I'm actually interested in. I'll just wait for VGP to get it. I'll wait for Video Games New York to get it. Because guess what? It used to be, and the benefit to limited run, for me personally, was that they didn't charge sales tax. I'd pay shipping, I'd stack 5 or 10 games into it, because it's going to take them 12 months anyway. And then eventually I get a massive box, and that's how the pickup videos ended up as padded out as they did back in the day, because I would literally have a box just chilling in their warehouse for 12 months. I still have a couple orders like that for some of these retro re-releases from Retrobit, but I've recently discovered another website that does it and doesn't charge me tax and doesn't charge me shipping. So what do you think I've been doing? That's where I think their business model for me personally is starting to not make sense. Why am I going to pay an extra? New York sales tax is 8.875%, by the way. So you take a $34.99 game, you tack on $5 shipping, you throw my sales tax on it. I'm basically paying an extra 10, 11 bucks. And then I wait 12 months and they get all the money as an interest-free loan. What? Why? Like, to me, financially, it just doesn't make sense anymore. I get it through a company like VGP, for instance. Hopefully, I get the currency exchange. And I potentially get free shipping if I stack a bunch of stuff in there. If I really can't wait, of course I'll pay the shipping. They have a distribution channel like in upstate New York by Niagara Falls, I think. So for me, it makes complete sense. So to that end, in a recent, box o' shit from Limited Run Games, not only did I get Trip World, but I also got Severed, which I originally played on the Vita. This is a phenomenal first-person dungeon crawling RPG. I finished it, absolutely loved it. I believe it's the guys who make Guacamelee who did this. It's all touchscreen. Yeah, I know. It sounds like a phone game. But hear me out. Basically, the RPG battles, it's severed, right? So basically you're cutting. So you have to do different swipes for different enemies, break down defenses, and you go through this whole thing. I believe the game's only like 6 or 7 hours, but it's very stylized. And I could not tell you how much fun I had playing this game. It was honestly, I think, a Game of the Month of the Year contender back when I had originally played it. I can't remember, but when I heard Limited Run was doing a release on the Switch, I was like, oh, hands down, must do it. I already owned it physically on the Vita when it was released through PlayAsia. Of course, that skyrocketed once the Vita went out of production, so I sold it and I got the Switch version. Because, again, I don't discriminate. I have an OLED Switch. I have an OLED Vita. It's kind of one for one. I already got the trophies. If I really want to replay it, I'm going to replay it on the Switch because honestly, my Switch is always plugged in. It's connected to the internet. It doesn't have some wacky wizardry done to it like my Vita does. And I also don't have to worry about batteries dying and turning it on every 6 months to make sure it's still good, which, by the way, you should do. Next up, we have Senran Banka, not Kagura, 1,000 Colors of Love. I have a very weird fascination when it comes to visual novels, as a lot of you guys know. A lot of times I buy visual novels sight unseen. I read a quick, the blurb, the marketing blurb, and decide if I want to partake in it or not. Because honestly, if it's not an Otome, you don't get as many anymore, because Otomes actually sell really well for Axis as well as a few other companies. So don't really know much about this, but a lot of the releases, the visual novel games, if you are interested in them, or want to at least have a lower barrier of entry and don't want to do any wacky wizardry to your Vita or your 3DS or anything, they're all on Steam. If you have a Steam Deck, if you have one of the other handheld PCs, if you have, I think it's a Backbone or whatever, the Logitech Cloud thingy to play stuff so you can sit on the couch and play, it's a great way to do that. And here's where my problem with digital comes in, particularly with VNs. So for the longest time, Steins Gate was only available on Steam. And then there was fan translations for PC and all that stuff. Same thing with Shibuya 428 Scramble. And then eventually it got released on the Wii. And then it got released on the PS4, which is how I have it. And then obviously on PC. So I don't know about you guys, I cannot play a visual novel on a TV. It does not compute for me personally. So I thought, okay, cool, we'll get on Steam. So now I sit there and I click on a mouse every so often, and I am literally dozing off. A VN for me is best served when I'm on the way to do something. If I'm on the train, if I'm in an Uber, which honestly I can't really read in a car, it makes me nauseous. But on occasion, I can get away with it. But that's where I treat them as books. I read them in my spare time on my way of doing something else or waiting around or whatever. I've had a couple on my phone. I'm that guy who sits there like this. I don't know why I held up the Diet Coke at the same time, but now I remember that's why. But, for me, sitting in front of a monitor or sitting in front of a TV just doesn't necessarily make sense. So when the Steam Deck came out, or when I eventually purchased one, I went VN nuts. All the physical VNs I had on the PS4, I sold off, except for Shibuya 428. Because honestly, I was like, I'm never going to touch these. I will much rather play on the Steam Deck. Next thing I know, I have a digital library of like 50 VNs, and I've played none of them. And you could argue backlog. You could argue, you can only take so much, cultured content, waifu stuff, blah 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 blah. The Steam version's the all ages version. You want the uncensored. Pick your argument. You can have any of them. Here's mine. If I don't physically see it, I forget I have it. I booted up my Steam Deck one last time before I posted it for sale because honestly it wasn't getting used. My Steam library is like, not counting shared libraries with my buddies, is over 1,000 games, and I've probably finished 30 of them. And that's probably right when I got my PC, the first one I ever built, to be completely honest with you. Not counting your Skyrims, your Fallouts, not counting those. If I don't see it, that's where digital is a problem for me. And to this day, it is still a problem for me. And that brings me to the next game, Black Book. This is I think it's a Slavic mythology deck building RPG or a card-based RPG battle system. I can't remember off the top of my head. Beautiful art direction. Looks phenomenal on a PC. I own it digitally. I played it once. I forgot I owned it, and then I bought it on the Switch. In hindsight, I probably should have got it on the PS4 because I own a PlayStation Portal now, and it would look, truthfully, a lot better than it would on the Switch because there is a lot of graphic stuff going on, but it is a pretty dark game. Really interesting, really fascinating, and this was released through limited run. And as I said, I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, I heard about this game. I remembered I had played it. I didn't remember where. I didn't remember if it was through Amazon, if it was through Steam, if it was through Epic, which I own it on Epic, which I got it as a freebie, I believe, or if I had it through Game Pass. There was just too many digital services for me to remember where my library actually sits. And you may argue, Alex, that's why we have game collector apps now, which I do have. Now you're asking me to go into another digital platform to add stuff to a library. That's on me for not doing it, of course. But if I'm already having a challenge with putting stuff physically, or rather recognizing stuff within a digital storefront, what are the odds of me remembering to click a button on my phone to add in a game that I do not physically see in front of me? All my physical Saturn stuff I have in storage is of course in there. But when I get a freebie on Epic, I don't, pop open the PC or my iPad, pop onto my Epic account, click yes, redeem, and then open up my phone and then put it in there. It doesn't work. It's honestly, I'm too old and dumb. It's too many steps. So to that end too, also picked up Ex Zeus. I got this as part of VGP's Black Friday deal. And these are arcade rail shooter mech games. These have been out a while. I've had them on my Steam wishlist forever. It got a physical release through limited run, and I also believe on PS4. Didn't even know. I probably got the email and it just went over my head. And that's where, again, I think the limited run model got a little bit too carried away. They expanded too fast. They had too many releases. You can't keep up financially. A lot of people can't keep up financially. Some people like me just lost interest. I'm like, it's enough. Like, or you wait until a bunch of games come out and they had to extend pre-order windows and everything else, and then guess what? They end up on Amazon and other distribution platforms anyway, like Sword of the Vagrant. I've had this on Steam since the original release of 2016, and I think I paid $3.99 for it. And I bought it physically for $35.99. And truthfully, this is probably going to get returned. I did play it on the Steam Deck a little bit before I had sold that too. And it's fine. It's a very beautiful looking game, but the combat really bored me. But I think I wasn't in the mood. So I was going to give it one more shot before I return this, because guess what? This is on Amazon. It's readily available. They obviously had to hit some sort of pre-order number for them to produce them, and now there's too many. I don't know how well it sold or anything like that. And I'm not trying to be critical of Limited Run, honestly, because I think they've done a lot of good stuff. But that's who I order from the most in terms of limited distribution companies. There's pockets of other companies in this stack here. Really, it's just one. But Limited Run has been the forerunner for a very long time. And we've also seen a lot of these limited release companies change their business model. Strictly Limited is no longer doing Strictly Limited stuff, but I'll be honest with you that their packaging and everything else was exceptional. It's clear that they have a very good relationship with Devolver, but the whole thing was fucking stupid. They should have just done it that way in the first place. I waited like 2 years for Broforce, and I could have bought Demon Throttle like a year before I got that box in. It's really dead. The Cult of the Lamb stuff I read about too, and that's just also ridiculous. But the other problem with limited release stuff is time frame. Sometimes, depending on an agreement, it may or may not be ready for multiple platforms, which is the case of Panzer Dragoon. I got this on clearance for $23 at Best Buy. $23, brand new at Best Buy. I already own it on the Switch. I beat it digitally on the PS4 because it was on sale for like $3 or something several years ago, and I wanted to play it because I hadn't received my physical release of the Switch version yet, which apparently has frame rate issues galore. So, I love Panzer Dragoon to start. So if that's the case, I have it physically again. What do you think I'm going to do with the Switch version? The version that I am probably not going to play, especially now that I have a PlayStation Portal. Don't need it. If they came out at the same time and there was some sort of graphical comparison channel like Digital Foundry that was covering it actively as these releases were announced, which that would be great, but that's a lot of work, then I would be able to make an educated decision on which platform to go for. There's too much, I guess you could say, nebulous marketing when it comes to platform selection. Obviously, at this stage of the game, the Switch is severely underpowered compared to everywhere else. But there's certain games where you wouldn't expect it to be underpowered, where it has an effect on... Obviously, graphics are completely different, but performance-wise, you'd be like, why is it struggling with this, But apparently it's the way it's coded, from what I understand. So, also on limited release stuff, I used to be a huge fan of super rare games. Huge fan. I was even a member of their club, which, in case you don't know, you pay a yearly membership, and honestly, in hindsight, I think it was a waste of money. But the first year you got a discount code, which mine didn't work, and they had to troubleshoot it. After I went to buy a collector's edition. The only time, and I never bought it because it didn't work. And then I did it again for one more year, and then this year they asked everybody to renew, and I was just like I only bought like one release from them in the previous year. So I was like, it doesn't make sense to get, the faster shipping and all that stuff and all that crap. So I have two here, one of which is Tinykin. This game is gorgeous. I actually own it on the PlayStation because I got a Portal, and I was like, I will play it there, but it's so charming. I was like, I have to own it physically in some sense. So they put this up, and again, this is where I have a challenge when it comes to buying all these limited release things. Between exchange rate and shipping, they'll say, "Oh, the game is $34," but then after the exchange and shipping and everything, to me, it's like 50. So I have to be very much more selective. So in the case of Haiku, the robot, which is a very cute Metroidvania, I almost said it. Need more Diet Coke. Can't say that. Which is a very cute pixelated Metroid style game or Castlevania style game. I originally saw this release back when I was a member of the club, thought about the exchange rate and all that stuff, and said, fuck it, I will get on the Steam Deck. What do you think happened? Nothing. I forgot I owned it. I forgot I was excited about it. I even got it as part of a bundle for like $1. And I completely forgot. Now here I am with no Steam Deck. Somebody who doesn't want to sit in front of a PC longer than he has to in any given time. And now I have to go on eBay to rebuy this because Super Rare Games hasn't adopted a retail model as of yet. They've done other things instead. So I go on eBay, and of course this is pushing $100, $100. I saw somebody who had it up, and I'm being honest here just to put this in perspective, for $75, best offer. So I thought about it. I thought, it's after the fact, it's opened. I would have paid $55 anyway. Let me throw down $60 and see if they accept it. They did. Presumably, I mean, it's open, but it has everything. Presumably, they paid the same price I did, let's say, $55. They made $5. Nobody is really buying it at that $95 price point. It's an old business model of flipping that doesn't really work because we've reached critical mass in terms of limited release companies. And I'm not trying to paint them in a bad way here. But when you have a game that you can buy digitally as part of a bundle for $1 versus $55-$60 and you're kind of strapped for cash, what are you going to do? I was selling something on eBay and some person reached out to me and said, hey, I'm really interested in this game, but money's actually kind of tight. Are you open to offers? Because I didn't have best offer on it. And I said, yeah, we can maybe figure something out. What were you thinking? And he goes, okay, I was thinking, let's say, I don't remember the exact cost, but for sake of example, let's say it was $100. They said, how about 50? They basically sliced it in half. And I was like, no, dude, I could do, I was like, I'll try to cut you a deal. I can do 20% off because, I'm not strapped for cash. This is me just trying to clear out the collection. But at the same time, I want to make what this game is worth, and you're still getting it under the value that is typically sold for. And he said, no, I can't afford that. And I was like, okay, well, I'll tell you what. I don't think this game is going to move. I haven't had anybody else make an offer. If you'd like, I'll take it down for a week. You message me again if you're able to do it or you figure something out. And then, I'll put it as like a ridiculous price. You put down best offer of what we just talked about, and then I'll accept it. I have no problem doing any of that. No, it would be really cool if you did me a solid. And at that point, this is where, the old man in me comes out and I went, sir, sir, madam, I don't know who you are, but if you cannot financially afford to purchase a game, why are you pushing yourself to buy it? I'm being honest here. I would say, even if I was willing to do that $50, you literally just told me you're strapped for cash. I can't in good conscience let you buy it. And, they were just like, oh, no, I was hoping to get some sympathy out of you. Really? That's what we come to? So long story short, I eventually sold the game to this individual for 20% off. And it was a deal. And he even put in the feedback, which was positive, he said, cut me an awesome deal. I'm like, but that's where I think we are. There's just so much stuff, and people are getting hip to the game. They know everybody, we'll say the old flipping guard, are going to buy everything in mass, pull it out, throw it up for a ridiculous price, and then just doesn't move. So that's how I ended up with Haiku in a long roundabout way. Now we're going to go on to some PS3, PS5, PS4. Actually, no, we're going to do this. Touching on the digital stuff and me not wanting to sit on PC, I picked up a physical copy of Fear. Again, this game usually goes for $30-$40. I got for $16. Um, Basically just put it as a watch, and the guy sent me an offer, and he literally put in there, I'm open to go lower if you pay immediately. So he offered me 20. I said I'll do 16, 17, and he said sure, and that was it. And it's complete. I mean, the box is a little banged up. Disc is fine though. I've owned Fear on PC for a very long time, and I actually started to play it the other day when I was a little bit under the weather, let's say. And then knock on wood, I got better. So here I am outside again. I can't play it, and it's backwards compatible on the Xbox One apparently. Or no, I'm sorry, 2 and 3 are. But I have a Series S, so I'm like, okay, I'll just get those digitally. But Fear 1, oddly enough, is not backwards compatible at all or available digitally, and I do not know why. I think it has to do with the fact that the first 2 games, I believe, were made by Sierra. And I don't know who owns the rights at this point. But, I own a disc-free system. So, because I've never really been much into the Xbox Series system. So I had to go to the storage unit and bust out the old 360. And with it, brought all of my 360 games that are not backwards compatible. Because I can't, or if they are backwards compatible, I have no way to put them on my Series S other than repurchasing them. Which, life hack, if you have a Series X or an original Xbox One and you have a physical copy of a backwards compatible game, you put the disc in, it ties it to your account. You don't need the disc anymore. You can switch to a Series S or a Series X and it'll still say you own it. That's how I've been still able to play Panzer Dragoon Orta. I didn't have to pull that out of the closet. I wish I had done that with Oblivion and Fallout. But anyway, so because I have such like a disdain for PC gaming at this point, again, just sitting in front of a computer all day, I've started to try to get a couple of things, either physically or digitally, on another platform like the PS4, the PS5, the Xbox, the Switch, stuff like that. And I don't care whether it's physical or digital because, again, I just want to play the damn shit, you know? Skyrim's on everything. I dare say owning a physical copy of that anywhere is kind of a waste of time because you can get for $4.99 on any given day of the week. And even if you get the vanilla version, you still have like 1 billion hours of content to go through. So, anyway, Fear was kind of like, I guess you could say, your first like foray into survival horror first-person shooting. They eventually got creepier, and then I think the third game was basically the Fast and the Furious with spooky shit. But the second game, when it came out, was a big deal on the PS3 and the 360. I think because that's when they finally came to grips with the tech. This game on PC, honestly, it looks like a very, very old game, and it plays like a very, very old game. I looked at some comparison screenshots, and the 360 kind of just looks like the PC on like medium-low settings. So, that's fine. It can't look that much better. Finally picked up a physical copy of Ratchet and Clank Full Frontal Assault. I am not a big tower defense guy. I find it to be such a pointless gameplay mechanic that I actually get nauseous playing it. Like Ys 8, I can't even tell you how annoying that was. Same thing with Ys 9. But I love Ratchet and Clank, and watching gameplay of this, it seems like it's basically just like more like the Horde mode from Gears of War. So I was like, okay, let me try it. Now at this point, the only Ratchet and Clank game I'm missing from a physical basis is Quest for Booty, which I own digitally, but I believe the physical release was Europe only. So this I got brand new from VGP during their Black Friday sale. And then from Play Asia, because honestly, that's where I buy most of my games these days. I got a physical copy of Mistover. This was part of like some ultra liquidation clearance thing they did. Mistover is kind of like an anime, I'll say anime Made in Abyss, Darkest Dungeon sort of spin-offy game. This is no longer available digitally. I own it on the Switch. I got the Super Special Edition when it came out, and I played it for a bit, and I really enjoyed it. But because it's not available anywhere else, at this point, and this was literally $7. I was like, it's a no-brainer for me to pick up yet another version of it, considering how much I really enjoyed it. And when I say it's not available anywhere, it's not on Steam, it's nowhere, and it's literally the studio lost the license for whatever reason, or ownership rights. Maybe that's tied to the investments. I don't know. But given the price, I was like, you know what? If I find anybody or know anybody who's looking for a copy down the road, like I have two, so I could easily, help them out with that. It's a tough game, but it's really good. Also got Lost Eidolons. I own this on Steam. Same argument, same first world problem I've been having all video. It's, I'll say, a realistic Fire Emblem with a lot of medieval sort of stuff going on. When it came out, a lot of people said it was great, and then as Steam reviews go, 50 people say it's great, followed by 50 people saying it's shit. So you never know if the game is actually good or not, or if somebody's just having a really bad day. But ACG, he seemed to really enjoy it, and he went in depth. He put up a great video about it. It looks really impressive, actually. The PS5 version costs significantly more than the digital version, obviously, because, physical production shit. But I'm talking like an extra $15, which to me is, usually okay. But then because it's on PS5, they mark it up like another 10, so it's more like 20-ish. It's very strange, but it's been sitting in my Steam backlog since like it came out, and it's just never gonna get touched. So I thought this made total sense. Also, as part of their clearance, I picked up a NTSC copy of Record Lodoss War, Deedlit in the Wonder Labyrinth on the PS5. I own the Japanese version on the Switch, and I finished it on Game Pass when it came out because I couldn't wait anymore. I hate to say it, the Switch version runs like shit. And that was the same problem that plagued the Overlord Metroid-style game as well. I'm hoping that comes out on PS5 because the hitching was just really bad. The hitching on this was really bad. So I'll be getting rid of that copy. And honestly, replaying it on this once the mood strikes. I mean, it's a very short Metroid-style game, but it's brilliant, especially if you love the series. And then I also got Grime, which is more of like, I'll say, like a grim, dark, horror-based Metroid-style game. Same deal. Had this on Steam. Had it since release. Never fucking touched it. Completely forgot I had it. Saw I was getting a physical release overseas. Thought, okay, now we're fucking gonna play. And then guess what they add to the PlayStation Plus library? Grime. Literally the day it shipped. Alright, last two. Diablo 4. I already finished this year. I really enjoyed it. I did a little bit of co-op with my buddy 22. And honestly, I like the arcadiness of Diablo 3. I like the world design of Diablo 4. I like the horror aspect of it. I love that the way dungeons work in this game. I really enjoyed it. And I play a sorceress because that's how I always roll. Anytime I play a wizardry or a wizard-based class, I always play a female because boring context here. Male version of me is always Alcindor. Female version of me is always Alessandra. It's just a role play thing I do. But Alessandra, the frigid bitch, as I call her, because she always uses ice magic. Powerhouse. Like, I love the fact that they kept all the crowd control stuff in this game. Now, honestly, I finished it before they did a bunch of patching, so I don't know what any of that looks like right now. But the good news is, because everything is integrated and it's cross-platform, my character carried over to the PS5. So I don't need to restart anything if I want to play off of Alessandra. It goes all off of the same account. So I have access to everything, and I basically can play anywhere at this point. And it works phenomenally on the PlayStation Portal. And the last game, this is more of like a odd curiosity of mine, Immortal Realms Vampire Wars. I have really been in the mood for a RTS game. And I have tried to play a couple of RTSs with a controller in the past couple of weeks. And it ain't hitting. It ain't hitting at all. My lizard brain just cannot fathom hitting so many fucking buttons just to select two guys to go over and punch somebody in the face. It is just way too much fucking work. Um, but I have the itch. So this is a Heroes of Might and Magic inspired version. So Heroes of Might and Magic is inherently turn-based with an overworld map. So in your turn, you make units. Everything is gathered automatically. You click, 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 and then you move your character, and then it goes into turn-based combat when you engage somebody and you explore an overworld at the same time. That seems to be how this gameplay goes. And Heroes of Might and Magic was something I played a lot as a kid. Heroes of Might Magic 2 and 3 were my jam. I would literally come home and sit there and play, kid you not, skirmish for like 5 hours. And I would do it with 8 computer players, and in this case it's vampires, so I believe there's 3 different kingdoms. But in Heroes of Might and Magic, you had humans, you had the undead, you had the elves, you had, the gnomes and the dwarves, and every unit had different, like a rock, paper, scissors mechanic, and you make these incredible armies with phoenixes and dragons and knights and paladins. And then the pixelated, shitty animated characters would go up on a screen like this and do that and fall down. And it was fucking fun. And the resource management, gems, coal, gold, wood, all this stuff you need just to like do certain units. So you may be dominating the map, and you may have been able to make phoenixes since like the first 3 or 4 turns, but you never found resources to make them, so you can't. And that's really where the exploration part comes in. There's also like overworld challenges as well. And I realize I'm talking more about Heroes of Might and Magic than anything else, but if this sounds interesting to you, it is on GOG. Don't be like me, buy them 50 times and never play any of them. Once Ubisoft took over, they got a little funky. In my opinion, the last good one is 4. 5 is okay, 4 is pretty much the last good one, but 2 has always been my jam. Anyway, long roundabout way of saying this looks enough like that I wanted to try it out. And I haven't popped it in yet. It actually just arrived, I think, a day or 2 ago. So those are the pickups. As you can see here, it's still a bit, but it's not as much as they used to be because I'm being much more selective. These, truthfully, are mostly just me trying to buy games that I want to play, but just do not have a method or a way to do so, or the desire to do so on the platform I've originally selected. So moving forward, these probably won't show up as often. I kind of wanted to tie this into how I see limited release companies and like that whole digital physical argument, as opposed to just a straight up pickup video. Maybe these will show up once every couple of months if I have something to talk about with them, but that's where I kind of see digital and physical for me as a consumer. Digital's great. I have no qualms with it. If it's a matter of a $70 game and then getting it digitally for $5 and I'm not really sure I want to spend that money, or I'm not sure if I'm going to like it, I'll take the $5 all day. If I want to get it physically and I'm cool with waiting, then I'll just wait. The reason for the significant digital discount is to trigger that endorphin in the brain to make you go, ooh, let me get that. It's only $5. That's how streaming services make their money. It's $10, $10, $10, $10. Before you know it, you have 15 of them and you forgot to cancel all of them. Unless they send you an email saying, hey, by the way, we got to increase, and then you're like, oh shit, I got to cancel that. And meanwhile, you've already been paying for it for 2 years. I don't think, in terms of video games, in terms of sizes, using Diablo as an example, it's 90 gigs on this disc. Installed, I think it comes out to like 88. And they're going to be adding content to it. Not everywhere in the United States has strong internet. Not everybody has the privilege of a wired connection. Not everybody has the privilege of Wi-Fi connections. A lot of people, Steve O Supremo, for the longest time, for instance, had to use his phone as a hotspot to get internet connectivity. And now he has legit internet, and he's like, oh my god, like this is ridiculous. I live in New York City. I've always had decent internet. Even me using the cheapest plan from Spectrum is still pretty good when compared to other parts of the country where connectivity is not as good. So that stretch, I don't think physical is going to go completely away, but I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a market thing. So what do I mean by that? And then we'll get the hell out of here. When the Neo Geo Pocket Color came out, Yeah, we're going way back. SNK's base of operations was based out of California. I live in New York. All my friends heard about it through AOL because we're old, and we wanted to get them. We wanted to get Neo Geo Pocket Colors. We wanted to get games. We wanted to get all this stuff. Toys R Us wasn't carrying it. Kitty City wasn't carrying it. I think KB was still around at the time. Needless to say, locally, no store was carrying it. The only way we could get it in New York City was to order it directly from SNK's distributors. We had to fill out a piece of paper. We had to print out a piece of paper first off. We had to fill it out, and we had to enclose a check for these games and then mail it to them, hoping that this check arrived. And then several months later, we got our Neo Geo Pocket Colors, our cases, and all that stuff. I think eventually GameStop started to carry them on a limited basis, but you had to buy like one of those ridiculous huge-ass bundles. But there was a lot of that back in the day. They would call it test marketing. TurboGrafx did a lot of that too. Like, for instance, Magical Chase. Everybody knows Magical Chase at this point. That was mail order because it didn't make sense to physically send it out everywhere. So people freaking out over Best Buy not carrying physical media anymore. Every time I order from Best Buy, I'll be honest with you, it doesn't ship from one of their warehouses. It ships from a store. And it's usually the one up on 86th Street and Lexington Avenue. 9 times out of 10. So I decide one day I'm going to fucking physically go there and just check out the inventory. None of it is out. It's all in the back room. They're trying to capitalize on what they know moves, you know? Like from a business perspective. People are ordering games for online delivery or in-store pickup online and all that stuff. They don't necessarily need to have it out. If they're not going to carry them physically in the store anymore, I guarantee you they still got them in a back room, or they ship them off to a warehouse so they can just sell them online. They're more concerned about reducing a footprint of a medium that doesn't sell in store as often, and maybe potentially downsizing a store location or, unfortunately, closing it altogether. So I used to have access to 4 different Best Buys. There used to be one near my house on 60th Street. I don't live on 60th Street, but I could walk there. And then we had the one in Midtown by my old job. Then we had the one in Union Square, which is all the way downtown. And then we also had the one on 86th Street. 86th Street I rarely ever went to. I always went to 60th because that store was huge. It was gorgeous. They had a whole floor dedicated to TVs. Video games took up a whole back corner. And then there was a whole back corner that was dedicated to movies, DVDs, Blu-rays, and PCs. 3 floors. 3 floors of Best Buy. And I'll be honest with you, this all sounds great. It was a lot of empty space. It did not make sense to renew that lease. I totally get it. The one in Midtown was in a smaller location, admittedly 2 floors. They moved that up the block, and now I think it's 3 or 4 floors. Basically, taking two locations and combining them into one. Unfortunately, the one that was further downtown on Broadway is gone because the Union Square one is really like the flagship. It was at one point 24 hours. I don't know if it is at this point, but you're still going to see physical stuff. You're still going to be able to buy physical stuff. They're just not going to keep it out front. It's kind of like when you going to Toys R Us back in the day, picking up a piece of paper, going to the register, then going over some other guy who looks at it, goes, and then goes in the back, and all of a sudden it shows up in a dumbwaiter. I would not be surprised if that's going to be the business model, at least in the interim, and then eventually shifting to a completely online format. So you'll still have it. But I think the challenge right now, and I'm speaking for myself here too, I like to go into stores. I like to browse. I'm not saying like this, you guys are overreacting, because you're not. Trust me, I was like, what the fuck? I want to like go into a store on a cold ass day, get some heat, and look at video games and all that stuff. I kind of miss shopping in stores. Going on Amazon, going on websites, all that stuff, eBay, it's all well and good. You find what you want, all that stuff, but that endorphin hit of being like, ooh, shit, they have this, is gone. That doesn't make these stores money, unfortunately. It doesn't seem like it. You and I, we may see the album and go, shit, it's only $35. I'm totally picking it up. That's not everybody. We're a very small demographic compared to the grander scheme of the entire United States. You know what I mean? So we're pretty loud, but we're pretty loud on YouTube. We're pretty loud on forums and comments, and we can be pretty loud with wallets, of course. But the fact of the matter is, if they're like, okay, cool, so the online sales have stabilized and we make like, we'll say $1 million every 2 weeks. But in store, they've gone down historically 25 grand each month for the past like year and a half. Why are we going to keep it in the store? Just send it off to the warehouse. And then when the lease is up, we'll just move to a smaller location. Or we'll shutter it depending on how that is. It's all business, guys. It really is all business. It just sucks because that business affects our hobby. But anyway, I've been Alex, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.